Well, that week just gone was absolutely cracking for Switch, to be fair. It's nice this stage in the game to be getting games like Xenoblade Chronicles X, to be able to sit for 12 hours a day playing it. And if you did manage to pick it up, go check out a video I made called The 10 Things I Wish I Knew Before I Started. I'll pop a link to that in the description. Now, firstly, congrats to the winner of our free game this week. Your name's on the screen. I am still waiting for an email from the last guy, so if you remember, please ping me that email. There's good news and there's bad news this week. The good news is there's a load of games on sale, and that's also the bad news. The also good news is that actually they're quite cheap, mainly due to Devolver Digital having a cracking sale on at the moment with their lowest ever prices. But the backlog is going to be disappointed either way. Alright, my name's Mark Walker. Thanks for joining me on this glorious Sunday. It's not glorious here, the weather's terrible, but it's glorious to be together. What are the best games on sale? Well, let's find out. Let's kick off then with one of my favourites. It's A Space for the Unbound. This is down 25% at the moment, and that goes on until March the 26th. This one's set in the late 90s in rural Indonesia, and it's a narrative-driven adventure that follows high school sweethearts Atma and Raya as they explore their newfound supernatural abilities. Now, those abilities do involve lots of slightly unusual cats, a bit of time bending straight out of Donnie Darko, but I love the gameplay mechanics. It blends a lot of the mundane that you'd find in everyday life, little mini games, trips to the cinema, trying to help some fella get a pack of fags. Like, that's actually what happens. By the way, fags are cigarettes here in the UK. Oh dear, don't cancel me. But there are also stealth sequences, quick time events, and there's an arcades that you can visit to become the best at this game and teach this know-it-all a lesson. Has a lovely visual style as well that does captivate that Indonesian feel, but it's the emotionally resonant narrative that stood out to me, with the space dive mechanic letting you dive into other people's real world experiences and try and solve an issue for them within their psyche. Very cool. A Space for the Unbound is 25% off until March 26th. Next up, we've got Afterimage. This is 70% off. I am plugging heavy on Afterimage, you've probably noticed. The sale goes on until March the 29th. It is a Metroidvania, and in my opinion, it's one of the best we've got on Switch that's completely underrated. It's set in the world of Engadin, but it has this lovely hand-drawn art style that reminds us of Muramasa. Very solid combat. It's really that world that is the highlight for me, the way that you navigate with all of the aspects that you would expect from a quality Metroidvania. Now, Afterimage has a full review on the channel. It's also 70% off at the moment, just 2.2 gigs to download. Dragon Quest Monsters, The Dark Prince is 40% off. I think I was one of the only people to actually review this, and I really enjoyed it. It takes the Dragon Quest world and gives you those Pokémon monster collecting vibes. And it's a spin-off with a protagonist who recruits and trains those monsters to battle against other creatures with a semi-overarching story that ties it together. That's not really the drive though, it is about those monster collections and then fusions of them to create stronger allies. It has a turn-based battle system, and it's quite linear in the way it progresses. So you visit one world and within it you've got freedom, then you move to the next and gradually expand. You can go backwards and forwards between them to capture more powerful ones. A really fun game. I enjoyed this a lot actually. It's 40% off, as I say. Dragon Quest Monsters, The Dark Prince, 4.5 gigs until March 25th. The Talos Principle has no right to be this cheap. It's 86% off until April the 2nd. It's got a 3.6 download size, and you take on the role of an AI that's exploring human civilization's ruins, and it does that in almost like a puzzle, like a first-person puzzle way, with quite complex challenges that require that logical lateral thinking that some people seem to excel with, and others it doesn't come so easily. This one features quite detailed and almost realistic environments that blends ruins with futuristic tech, which always looks good, doesn't it? It has a more philosophical narrative, but it's the puzzles and how well designed they are that I think is its main hook. The Talos Principle, 86% off, down to a stupid price until April the 2nd. One of my personal favourite games on Switch is Loop Hero. It's 75% off, which like many today are their cheapest ever price, and it centres around this world that's been thrown into a timeless loop by an evil lich. You then set about to well, endlessly wipe them out. It has roguelite and deck building elements, but also auto battle elements. You send your hero on the loop of this track almost, and then you add in things like rocks and stones that become mountains, and they'll then spawn enemies into its path, and as you get experience, you can upgrade the main town area. The art is going to put so many people off, I think. It's a bit like Balatro, not in terms of the art being the same, but the kind of game that you'd look at and go, yeah, probably not my cup of tea. So you just never bother trying it. But if you were to dip your toes in the water, you'd find out it was very clement indeed. I was completely addicted to this one, like painfully so. It's just 264 megs to download. That's Loop Hero, 75% off until April the 2nd. Ape Out is a classic Devolver digital title. It's absolutely bonkers. It features this escaped primate and it's 86% off down to £1.88, just 3 gigs. It's like a smash 'em up. You're trying to escape the facility. It's completely bonkers with the music soundtrack going off, this crazy jazz that does that percussive thing when you do damage to an enemy. But they're top down, I think they're procedurally generated stages. A difficult one to articulate, but very fun, easy to pick up and play, and quite brutal. It doesn't make me any less terrified of these apes. Broforce is 86% off until April the 2nd, just £1.88 as well. As you can see, most of these could have been SAVALOYs. It's 903 megs, and you can do 1 to 4 player co-op, I believe. It's a side-scrolling run and gun platformer that's almost a parody of iconic action heroes from the 80s and 90s. You can take control of various different bros, each with unique weapons and special attacks. They're battling terrorists, aliens, and demons. And it also has destructible environments, which was a lot of fun when I was playing in co-op with my kid. Yeah, this is really an excellent game. Very fun whether you're solo or co-op, and for £1.88, that's just, yeah, easy pickup. 86% off for Broforce until April the 2nd. The Sword of Ditto, Mormo's Curse, is another one I've played through with my kids. It's 86% off again, £1.88, 1.6 gigs. And as I've just suggested there, you can do 1 or 2 player local co-op. It's an action RPG. I think actually calling it an ARPG is a little bit of a stretch. It's more like an action adventure, but you've got this lovely colourful world to explore. There are dungeons as well. I think there's like 4 dungeons that you complete before heading to the central area. And it is about replayability, which I didn't realise the very first time I played it. Like each time you die, the world changes, or at least each time you begin a new game. I can't quite remember. Let me know in the comments. Which one was it? I'm sure it was begin a new game, but maybe not. Maybe I'm going mad. Still, Sword of Ditto, Mormo's Curse, 86% off. Good kids pick this week until April the 2nd. The Red Strings Club is like one of those games where you have to serve drinks, essentially. It's 86% off, again, down to £1.88, 290 megs, and it's like a cyberpunk narrative-driven adventure game where you're that bartender but also a hacker who are working together, and to do that you will be mixing lots of drinks. The reason for doing so is you're guiding, I won't say manipulating, guiding the emotions of your clientele, but also you'll be impersonating employees over the phone and crafting genetic implants. It's got quite a mature and striking storyline actually, with some dialogue that took me back when I was playing it. I just wasn't expecting that. For £1.88, like so many of these in the Devolver collection, it's such an easy recommendation. That's just a ridiculous price. That's the Red Strings Club until April the 2nd. RoboBeat was a game I played more recently. That's 35% off. That's got a new lowest price, down to £11.43 and just 4.1 gigs to download. This is single player only. It's basically a rhythm-based first-person shooter, which you would think would be like very, very rare. I mean, it is rare, isn't it? But there are actually a number of these now. RoboBeat is set within that futuristic environment. It does suit this style of game, and essentially doing shots on the beat is going to do way more damage. When you find the flow, this is a very enjoyable experience. It runs well enough on Switch. It's not Doesn't look amazing, but it looks good enough for sure. And if you're sick and tired of the traditional first-person shooter, this one might make a nice change for you. RoboBait, as I say, 35% off until April the 9th. Now, usually we jump straight into our SAVALOYs, but we won't just yet. We're actually going to put in a couple of region-specific deals. So, Bramble the Mountain King, which is amazing. It was made by Merge Games before they were sadly shut down. Or it wasn't made by them, it was published by them. It's 80% off until March the 30th. But that's North America only. But for $5.99, you're getting a very dark fantasy adventure game with two siblings, one looking for the other. And yeah, I'll just emphasize again, very dark, definitely not for kids. Quite terrifying at times. That's 5.6 gigs. Chia is 60% off until April 16th. Price is on the screen now. That's a 6.6 gig download. It's an adventure game set on an island where you can basically take on the form of animals, and like, so you can become a bird, fly around as the bird for a bit. You can actually poop on people's heads, which might be a good thing or a bad thing. I guess it depends on you. But check out our full review on that one. Fun game. Vernal Edge, brilliant Metroidvania, 50% off. That's until April the 1st. That's North America only, just $10.99. Another that we have a full review of. I think that's the good thing, isn't it? We try and talk about games that we actually know because we've reviewed them, which is quite handy. And then our SAVALOY selection. Just a couple of extra SAVALOYs this week because there's so many potentials in the main list. You've got Boomerang X, which is 90% off until April 2nd, down to £1.79 or your regional equivalents. This is a first-person arena shooter where you have a mystical boomerang to annihilate swarms of enemies. It's all about acrobatic movements. You're springing all over the place, teleporting your boomerang and then teleporting to your boomerang. Very minimalistic in terms of every other element. There's not a huge storyline, but you've got those minimalistic stylized visuals as well. Very cool game. And Disc Room, of course, which we mentioned the other day, 80% off. It plonks you in a room full of discs and it says survive. And you're like, okay, that's going to be easy. It's not easy. But once you survive 10 seconds, you unlock new rooms. And then they'll have different criteria. It'll be like, you can only unlock this room when you've unlocked 6 other rooms. And then you get to another one. It'll be like, okay, you can only unlock this room when you survive for 2 minutes in that one. And it might sound mundane, but my goodness, is this game fun. So my friends, that is it for this week. Now, behind the scenes, good things have been happening. I can't really talk about them, but they are good, let me tell you. So if you like the channel, Switch Up, I think you can look forward to a long and switched up history. Well, it's not switched up really, it's going to be the same. So from Glen and I, thanks so much for watching the channel, because otherwise we wouldn't exist. Thank you to our Patreons and our members. If you want to save some money, you can do so over at switchup.gg, where you get 5% in cash back. So you can, you know, spend to save, as I like to tell my wife. Although she came home with some gold shoes yesterday. I was like, hang about, hold the phone. What are those? So, oh, these are my new gold shoes. And the only thing I was thinking is gold is expensive. We won't talk about how that conversation ended. Thanks so much to our Patreons, as I say, all of you that enjoy the content. For all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!